next we've got the Republicans, and some men are blessed in this life, like Mike Huckabee. He parlayed his success as an Arkansas governor into a career as a celebrated weird Twitter account. And, well, some powerful men are lucky if they can sire one hideous fail son. Mike has been blessed with two. The twin AJs to Sarah's Meadow, David and John Mark Huckabee, set the standard for sons both fail and large. David with his penchant for dog murder and bringing loaded guns onto airplanes, and John Mark with his co-starring role as Bumpus in the 2018 film Christmas, A Revenge Tale, in which a video editor refuses a job offer from Huckabee's crime lord on Christmas Eve and must cut a bloody swath of Yuletide vengeance across the rented McMansion I'm going to assume it was shot in. Compared to the political careers of their father and sister, these boys are certainly fail, but much more importantly, these boys are large.
So large.
Just some big,
Huge.
beefy boys. The kind of sons you'd find sitting on the floor of your finished basement smashing light bulbs with a hammer. Sort of kids you'd have to hose off in the driveway after they get carried away during a county fair pie eating contest. Just some extra large sons who love to rub house.
Yep.
The Huckabee boys, 2 for 1.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about double size there. That's, yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know much more we can honestly say about them. These guys have been part of Twitter lore for years. They're the archetypal hulking, oafish offspring of a politician. In their case, I think their failness is sort of mitigated by the fact that their father is himself hulking and oafish in every way you'd want, and they almost seem like kind of perfections of Huckabee rather than degradations of Huckabee.
They're OG large sons, and
Indeed.
you have to say something, that says something for them in some ways.
Yeah.
He's an interesting character in American politics because, he for a time he was more successful than he deserved to be because he was such a hee-haw throwback.
Mm-hmm.
If he had been 50% less hee-haw, he'd probably be, a senator right now.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
And his fail sons are, perfectly represent that.
Yeah, Mike Huckabee was beloved for a very short window because he was enormously fat and lost a lot of weight. And that was it was probably the greatest thing you could do in 2006, 2007. No one was going to win Iraq. We weren't going to fix anything, but you sure could lose a lot of weight. And that would take care of one of Americans' problems. And he was he was one of the only guys who was let's not hang effigies of Barack Obama at rallies. And so Democrats were like, now this is a Republican I respect. But he could only really hold it in for a year. And after a year, he was like, well, God, shucks, I don't know what the heck a Dominican is. Yeah. And he just reverted to being his hee-haw himself. And his main legacy now is his enormous sons who killed the dog.
His giant dog killing boys.
Yeah.
And I think they heard Huckabee because imagine Huckabee walking into CPAC. This motherfucker's name is Mike Huckabee, and he has the hee-haw voice. Maybe they could accept that. But then you see his, massive sons just tromping in behind him in their fucking overalls. No, this is not going to be our nominee.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. It's a bit like, he's a real Cracker Barrel cracker. And he has been able to sort of break from that a little bit with the weight loss and with the, maybe, don't post pictures of Barack Obama with the Photoshop to have a bone through his nose. But then his sons wander in, and you're like, "Oh, we know who you are." It's like those ads in South Korea for plastic surgery with the really attractive couple with the ugly children. Because it's like you can't hide who you really are when people see your spawn.
It's interesting because Huckabee kind of could have pivoted to, just appealing to. Just suburban moms who are not necessarily religious or from the South, just on the basis of his friendly seeming weight loss books.
Yeah.
But then the whole clan shows up, strumming their banjos, and you're like, no, this is too gauche.
Yeah,
right?
you can. Yeah, Huckabee did better with black voters, according to some exit polls, and a lot of Republicans in the same time frame did. He had the makings of someone who could have been a crossover media stars. But you can't have sons who are constantly falling into barrels of molasses.
No,
That turns
it was
people off.
Like they were the return of his repressed hillbilly self. But he couldn't deny that. Like you could throw a big tablecloth over him, but they're going to see the outline. And it undermined his ability to be a transitional figure. And he ended up just having to double down on his corn pone stuff. And then he ended up going to Pat Robertson's television station to tell knock-knock jokes.
He does one of the his show is like, it's like a piece of outsider art. Like you get guys who have toured like this schoolhouse circuit in Arkansas who come on there and tell jokes about the differences between Methodists and Presbyterians.
Yeah, it's the right-wing version of Pete Seeger's Rainbow Room.
Yeah. It's it's like Comic View for guys who have a fourth favorite pocket knife.
Okay, now we're going to go with Virgil.
All right. Well, she came to prominence in 2007 when she started blogging to support her father, John McCain's presidential campaign. Oh. And this kicked off a career writing cloyingly sexy right-of-center publications. But I'm talking books with titles like Politics Under the Sheets, or a blog named like Garters and Governing. And in 2008, 2010, that era, DC people pretended like this was scandalous, likely because of the Beltway media's obsession with her father rubbed off on her. I mean, she's very much so a creature of this quaint Joe the Plumber era of cutesy blogosphere meme bullshit, who should have gone the way of the dinosaurs, but has managed to persist on the basis of her father's name. One note, a New York Times fashion article from 2010 headline, "Daughter of John McCain is a rebel." She's also the token right-wing panelist on The View and is married to another failed child, noted plagiarist Ben Domino's Pizza.
Yes.
Mm.
And it's that's a classic marriage type in the conservative sphere. It's not a May-December romance, but one of the words rhymes with May. That's all I can say.
She, my favorite story, I think this was in one of her books, is she decided to marry him at the 2016 RNC. I might be telling this wrong, but whatever. She decided to marry him at the 2016 RNC when she was so upset over Trump that he took her back to the hotel and like got her PF Chang's, and she was like, "This is the one."
You got it. I think it was Panda Express, but you got it right.
I think Panda Express, yeah.
Yeah. Just a real. She's very fail, but I gotta say, we'll save this for the debate portion. I think she's made good on becoming a mainstream figure.
It's true. She's on that show. I mean, she's only there because everyone on the set and watching hates her, but that's still a job. Like wrestling heel is a job.
Yeah, it is.
She's a very successful heel. She's very good at it.
Like she's able to get people to hate her, which of course, as we were saying, Chelsea Clinton incapable of doing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but she did luck out by getting plucked for that job. But I mean, I don't know. It's kind of redundant to say it because she did get it because of her father's name.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's made the most of the inevitable opportunity she was going to get, which is
she has. She really has.
Well, after failing over and over and over again, too.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like she was awarded this as an accumulation of her fails.
Yeah.
Because I mean, she invented her own position for her father's campaign, and then was fired from a position she created for himself after they found out she was doing it. That's impressive.
Yeah.
It is. That's a lot of that's like a lot of just like how to stay in your job type strategy. Like that's like advice Scott Adams would write in a Dilbert book.
Right.
But like her actual like on her own achievements, like there's none. Like nobody reads her books, nobody buys her books, nobody is buying Filibusters and French Kissing.
Yeah.
Okay. Amber.
I mean, what is there to say? We've already said that in some ways you feel worse for the Trump kids because their father hates them. I think Virgil has brought this up that like Don Jr.'s inability to maintain a marriage like indicates that in some ways he's like the less competent of the Trump children, which is sort of like saying a lot for the brothers specifically.
Mm-hmm.
He does embarrass himself quite a bit, but mostly it's almost unfair to call him a failed child because it's like he's one of the few kids who had kind of a I don't know, the favors or quote unquote favors he was given by his father are, in fact, also poisoned with his father's contempt for him.
That's
so
for sure.
It's not like a pure leg up. It's an ambivalent kind of deal. I guess that said, he does have the 5 children. So success. No condom king. Clearly, I'm also judging people by how many spawn they produce here. I think that's a major factor. I think the big thing though is like, the meme lordery and his effort to sort of go into the Bill O'Reilly thing with his books, writing books like Triggered, called Triggered. And then he has what he thinks is like a smoldering headshot of himself on the cover because he's trying to do the Trump thing of making himself like, the brand, trying to sort of utilize the Trump brand. But he can't even like take a headshot and have it like photoshopped to where he has a chin in it. So I don't know. I mean, like, he's a pretty big failure. He's up there, he's not a massive failure in any one category, but he's a great all-around player.
There's a reason why Don Jr. was chosen and not Eric. Imagine if you were born into this rich family and your brother, your competition is Eric Trump. Like that's your whole life is a layup.
Right.
Yeah.
And this guy is just getting dunked on.
Yep.
Yeah.
He got dunked on by Jared fucking Kushner, who's the one who got a job in the White House because Trump didn't trust any of those people he doesn't know. And he couldn't pick any of his kids, including the guy who has his literal name. The one who his wife tried to use as a bargaining chip in their divorce settlement. And it failed because Trump called her bluff because he didn't want him either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would say his pivot to being a triggered meme guy, like that's a huge demerit right there. That's just more evidence that he completely failed at his nepotism like business career.
Yes.
He failed to do like a real politics job, and now he's hanging out with Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, he is fleeing to politics the way that all the sickos online who have failed at everything in life and say, well, hey, I'm gonna attach myself to politics as an identity because it's easier than anything that requires like a resume or ability. And he's just coming at it, and he's only even able to do that sheerly through the power of his name.
Definitely the most multi-failed, versatile of fail kids, I think, in this category.
Every single one of the triggered personalities, like every single one is a failed stand-up or a failed actor or a failure in some other field. Like that's where you go. That's where the garbage chute leads.
Yep.
All
right, Felix.
All right. 10 Hut, Alpha Bravo, 30, Code Red, Baja Blast, Game Shark Gamma Delta. We are enrapturing the target in a kinetic manner requisite to target and being great sons to request daddy evac over. Some men are born great. Others are meant to be villains of history. But there are some who were always meant to be sons. Michael Flynn Jr. is such a man. Mike Jr. is the son of the most clenched jaw to ever grace the American NatSec state in Michael Flynn Sr. Flynn Sr. was like a working dog for the deep state. He was amazing at his one purpose, which was connecting one Al-Qaeda cell phone to another or triangulating ISIS locations through telecom devices. But if you put a cake at the edge of the counter or left the door open, you'd have a problem. Flynn was more or less forced out of the Defense Intelligence Agency in 2014 and underwent a change you usually only see in men subjected to divorce, even though he hadn't. Though his marriage stayed the same, Flynn had a new fling in the form of Turkey. Though at one time, Flynn, the general, had hated Turkey and thought of Tayyip Erdogan as a not-so-stealth Islamist, once he was paid a few $100,000, he changed his tune. By the time he was working for the Trump campaign, Flynn was given an important job: to kidnap Fethullah Gulen, a former Erdogan friend turned foe who lives in exile in Pennsylvania. You can't just pick any imbecile for the job. You need someone with kinetic experience, tactical awareness, and killer instinct. You have to pick your son, who is named after you and is a 34-year-old golf instructor who posts conservative memes all day. Unfortunately, the plan that would have saved Turkey, America, and PA public schools never materialized. Mike Jr. got shit canned from the Trump transition team, and Mike's dad got shit canned from the admin itself, and then the pair got wrapped up in the Mueller investigation. They generally escape ruin and imprisonment, in part due to Mueller's immense senility and the fact that people really don't care if you do Turkey, only Russia or Ukraine. Nowadays, you can't even find Mike Jr. on Twitter. The deep state took away the one thing closest to his heart, which was posting all the time. He is on Parler, but even people who are on Parler don't give a shit about Parler. I leave you with Mike Jr.'s finest moment, which was a DM exchange with Jake Tapper over Mike Jr.'s Pizzagate posting. Tapper, I have the highest regard for your father and only treated him in that manner, and I have respect for you as well, but I am mystified as to why you're pushing this theory, especially after the incident today that could have ended in bloodshed. Michael Flynn Jr., are you seriously saying this to the son of a veteran?
That's my absolute favorite thing about him, is that he is just a comprehensive valor thief.
Mm-hmm.
He is a guy whose very existence is walking into a fucking Golden Corral in a camo and expecting 10% off of your chocolate Wonderfall.
Yeah.
Only he just does it every moment of his life, and no one calls it on it because of this weird, like, genealogical worship of authority that these people have. So that he, the son of a general, means something. Like he's gonna, somehow be called to follow in his father's footsteps, even though he never went to the military, and it's not like he's gonna get drafted. Like, what is the idea? Is that they think that he's gonna do some fucking John McClane shit? If that moment ever comes, that he's going to rise to his father's level of warrior power instead of just posting. He's just a fucking losing poster.
Yeah, Flynn wasn't even really a combat troop. I mean, I think he served in Grenada.
Oh, that was a hell of a scrap.
Yeah. But Flynn was mostly an pencil pusher. He was very good at what his job was supposed to be, but like, he's not exactly like a warrior general, even though he really put on that image. I gotta say Mike Jr. is our most fail. Because Don Jr., he gets engagement even if the algorithms are killing his likes. And the Huckabee kids, they can probably they probably get free candy apples or something. I don't know how they show appreciation in Arkansas.
True.
And yeah, I mean,
epigenetic valor being the only thing on your resume that's pretty fail. Like, it's pretty bad. And he hasn't really been able to turn it into his own brand in any way. Like, he's the biggest coattail rider out of any of them.
I gotta say, he is our biggest failure.
I think so.
Pretty stunning.
I gotta vote for Don Jr.
Really?
I just have to. I mean, I'm just so well acquainted with his failure, and just like he just oozes.
I just
desperation.
think I feel like every time he's ever addressed an audience and tried to get them hyped up and like, hey guys, who's ready to get triggered? And he can't even light up a room when everyone is keyed up to fucking worship him. He's
every room, like every picture I've seen of him addressing a crowd where he's not like just warming it up for his dad or something, it's just like him and 12 incredibly old women.
Yeah.
At some Republican senior citizens home.
And the fact,
I mean, like I said, I think I think he's the biggest sort of all around failure, and that he has a myriad of small failures in every facet of political, public, and professional life. So it's really a matter of measuring the cumulative versus the extreme of Flynn Jr.
I think you're kind of pushing me over, because do you remember the Trump roundtable with Jerry Falwell Jr. and Becky?
Yeah.
Falwell?
Oh God,
That's
that was
true.
death.
That was one of the worst moments ever recorded.
And also keep in mind, you see everything that Don Jr. does, all the divorce guy shit as well, all the the fucking the killing the fucking animals shit.
Yeah.
It's he thinks all of that is cool. He thinks 100% of this shit makes him look really cool.
It's true. He does.
And it's just that delusion is so profound.
Pathetic. And for me, the tiebreaker of anything is how profoundly his father hates him, and how keenly aware he is of that fact. I feel like that's universal in the that's unchallenged in the tournament.
That's true, because it's not just a fail bracket, it's a fail son bracket. It's a fail child bracket. And insofar as his failure to be a rewarding son. Definitely.
Yes.
Also, one of you guys pointed this out somewhat the other day, and I just want to hammer it home because I'm going through his Twitter right now. His pivot to just being a political memes guy really, really, really underlines how much his presentation as a businessman is bullshit, in that his bio right now still leads with EVP of development and acquisitions in the Trump organization, and the motherfucker has tweeted over 45 times today just memes.
Yeah.
So the EVP office at the Trump organization must be real empty right now because not a lot of work getting done.
And also the fact that his big fixation and like he's going to run for office in a pathetic attempt to get his dad's approval or at least transcend his father in his own mind, and he's going to eat shit. And his issue is going to be shadow banning, because that is the issue of the loser. Of I would have more engagements, I would be more validated, I would be more popular if it wasn't for the man censoring my posts. It is the it's the cri de coeur of the fucking loser.
Right. And if this was a draft, you're looking at the future of the player. He has way more big fails ahead of him.
Oh, that's for sure. Like, he is absolutely going to make a failed attempt to run for president. He put a picture of himself in front of a Donald Jr. 2024 sign, and he's like, LOL, get a load of that. That's funny. But seriously, I'm just interested in the campaign happening right now. Like, come on,
I
dude.
think this is
Who
interesting.
are you fooling?
Because his father is gonna. I think he really genuinely wants to do that, and his father is gonna tell him no. And it's gonna be very interesting to see if he actually defies his father and does it and thinks, fuck it, like, these people are so stupid they'll vote for a guy with the same name.
Yep. He will not be happy with anything shy of being the president, and I just know in my heart that Donald Trump Jr. will never be president.